Yeah. All you kids out there, it's the 48-hour grind between now and Thursday morning when you wake up, presents under the tree. And look, it's never too late. It's what Christmas Eve is for, to get your Christmas shopping done.
I've got some stuff being ordered on very, very, very fast order.
Fast track.
Yeah, fast tracking that one because I
Yeah.
was a little behind.
It is. And then look, hey man, we got a lot to cover today. Be cool. Take a picture with your phone with QR codes. Here we go. I like that. I like that. Sounds like an English soccer match.
Yeah, this applies to my peanut gallery back here.
I like that. I like that, man. And then look, take a picture with the QR code of the. We're on Twitter Live, Facebook, and YouTube. 8 channels live streaming. Of course, you can catch it later whenever you want to, all over every social media platform I can think of. Brendan Martin, executive producer, is working behind the scenes, making all this stuff happen, and it is amazing what we got coming. We don't wait to say, yeah, but first of the year, we're going to do something great. We're already started it. And New Year's resolutions, I don't believe in them. Good habits start when you think of them. So we're starting the great habit right now. We got Jordan Davis Hill, 247 Sports, covers Georgia like nobody else. Heath Cline, producer and sometimes co-host over there with Chuck Oliver in Atlanta. Right after him, Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. And Gary Harris going to flip with us because Thursday there's Christmas and no show, and Rodney Orr is out today, can't do it. So let's get started on this Tuesday, December 23rd. Jordan, man, January 1st, 2nd is the Sugar Bowl. Let's talk about January 1. So let's talk about Georgia, the matchup with Ole Miss, what you learned the first time and what you learned from watching Ole Miss play with Pete Golding as the head coach this weekend.
Well, appreciate you guys having me on. And yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know how much we can really glean from them playing Tulane. I mean, it's an overmatched Tulane team, one that, I thought hung around. I thought they delivered a couple of body shots on Ole Miss, but Kirby was asked about it. We had a chance to talk to him for about 15 minutes on Monday, and he really downplayed the differences in this Ole Miss team without Lane Kiffin compared to what they saw when they played. I believe that was October 18th, and the biggest thing to me that I would take from that Tulane game, Ole Miss's third down defense. I don't know what the numbers wound up being, but early on in that game, they kind of kept leaving the door open for Tulane to at least hang around, and it wound up not really being a factor. We'll see, how Kewan Lacey's feeling. That to me was the biggest takeaway, was him being a little bit banged up, but I imagine he'll be ready to go once we get to January 1st. And yeah, I mean, I've written about it multiple times. So going back to the SEC title game when Georgia was playing Alabama again, they always say it's hard to beat a good team twice. And I'm someone, I think very highly of Lane Kiffin, but I don't look at his absence as necessarily being a detriment to Ole Miss. I think that this is a team that, you look at them, I think that they are motivated. I think that they want to show everybody that this was not just the Lane Kiffin show. They got a lot of talent. They got a lot of guys who can make plays and are fully capable. So I'm expecting a good game. And I think that win over Tulane probably makes everybody on the Ole Miss side feel a little bit better, feel a little bit more confident. And I think it's going to make for a really good show once we get to January 1st.
All right. So that being said, what's the injury status, offense, defense, special teams for Georgia? Because last time we saw them play was that win over Alabama.
Yeah, the biggest one, I actually just put a note on our board over at Dogs 24/7 on Gabe Harris, a defensive end. He's been dealing with turf toe. The latest that I've gotten does not sound optimistic as far as him being able to play, and that's significant because that's been an area that Georgia's been so hit or miss rushing the passer this year. So at this point, I'm not expecting Gabe Harris to play. I don't know if probably premature to go ahead and say he's out for sure, but things are not trending in the right direction there. Don't think they're going to get Colby Young back. That's a guy they're excited for. They're hoping can come back during this postseason run. I think if Georgia were to advance to the semifinal, it's much more likely he'd be able to play there. Drew Bobo's not going to play. I don't expect him to play again this season after suffering a foot injury against Georgia Tech. So some tough news there. They're going to need some defensive ends to step up. I'd point to Joseph Jonah Ajonye. I believe he's a redshirt freshman. He's definitely a second-year player for Georgia. Guy who's flashed and made some plays, but if Gabe Harris can't go at all, they're going to have someone step up and pressure Trinidad Chambliss, not allow him to get comfortable, because he was plenty comfortable that first time against Georgia. First 5 drives for Ole Miss in that game, 5 touchdowns. The defense got it figured out by the fourth quarter, but you don't want to be put in that situation again in this rematch.
When you think about the time off, the 7th to the 1st, back when we had the BCS championship, you could go 28 to 37 days between games. You're a different team by then. And the thing I noticed about Kirby is how meticulous he is with details. Y'all had a chance to talk to him. Did he talk about how they're handling all this time off and how, remembering last year that all 4 teams that got a bye in the first round lost?
Yeah, I think they've been really smart with their time. I think they gave them nice recovery. I think last week you really had them kind of pick up the pace when it comes to practice. And they practiced again on Monday. And then they're going to have a little bit of a break around the holiday before they come back and really get rolling. And, I think Georgia's tried to do its best to make the most of the time. Dan Lanning talked during that game against James Madison that they had worked on some simulated games to try to get the feel for what an actual game's like. And Kirby said they've done the same thing at Georgia. Now, he emphasized that only can do so much for you. It's not the same as being, in the Superdome and taking on a team like Ole Miss and the crowd and all those pieces of the puzzle. But I think that Georgia understands where it wants to go. I think Georgia has realistic expectations to win 3 games in this playoff and win a national title. Now, that's not going to say it's going to be easy, that any of these games. If you sat here and said, I have a crystal ball and I can look into it and Ole Miss wins this game, I'm not going to be flabbergasted. I think this is a very good Ole Miss team. But I think this Georgia team, they're motivated. I think that they've done their best to make the most of the rest. And Kirby was asked on Monday, basically, this is the second year in a row, very similar situation for Georgia. They're going to the Sugar Bowl. They had the first round bye. Did they change anything because last time they lost? And Kirby said the rest and how we prepared for that Sugar Bowl is not why we lost that game. We had a couple of crucial turnovers. We let a kick return come back. The middle 8 absolutely killed Georgia in that game against Notre Dame. So I think that they are very confident in their plan and their way they've tried to make the most of this time. And we'll just have to wait and see if it pays off, if they're able to play really well after having a pretty decent break between games.
Yeah, and that you just hate it because it's so much like baseball, hot bats. And the Georgia was so hot when they came off the field winning the SEC championship. And I'm with Kirby. That is a really big deal. I mean, Georgia went 82 to 02, that 20-year period, no championships. And then they started winning them in 02 and 05, and now he's winning them frequently. He's the best coach, I think, in the country. So that being said, what'd you notice differently when you watched Ole Miss play with Pete Golding as the head coach? Anything jump out at you? The Charlie Weiss Jr. is still Charlie Weiss Jr.
Yeah, not really. And Kirby really downplayed any differences because he said Charlie Weiss Jr. is still there. They still got the play caller. So I think the biggest thing, I just want to see once we get to this game, if this thing is tight, just how Pete Golding handles the little things that I think as a first-time head coach you might take for granted. I mean, working the 2-minute drill, being how you use your timeouts, how confident are you in your kicker? You're going to go for it on 4th down. That sort of stuff kind of interests me more. And I think Kirby, I think I'm sure there are some things that they see that are different in this Ole Miss team. But I think Kirby is right when he says you get this far in the year, you're not reinventing the wheel as a new coach. There's only so much you can do. I think
there is.
Even if you went in and felt like we got to change a lot of things. Well, what are you going to do this late in the season? The team is what it is. And Kirby basically said that. So I'm sure that they'll throw in some wrinkles. I'm sure that they'll find some things that they weren't necessarily doing before. But I'm not necessarily expecting a wholesale, totally different looking Ole Miss team because they've done pretty well with the formula that got them to this point. I don't think you'll see major changes once we get down to New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, as Franz Beard always says, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always be what you've always been. Looking at what you saw out of the college football playoff games, the 4 that you watched, who impressed you the most? We've talked about Ole Miss, but the other 3.
I would say probably just the Miami defense. Now that game was not a whole lot, to write home about on the whole, but I just think that defense is legit. We got Ruben Bain. I thought that they really got after Marcel Reed, made him uncomfortable, and elsewhere, I mean that Alabama team, as much as it gets faulted for, the way it plays at times, and that first quarter, man, looked like a disaster. It looked like we were about to see about a 40-point Oklahoma win. I think it's just a situation where Alabama still got that DNA trait of just resilience and determination, and they don't fold. Now, there are a lot of people I've seen that are really confident they're going to beat Indiana. I'm just not there. I don't quite see it with this Alabama team, and I don't think they can afford to start a game slow and expect to be able to overcome it, because I think that Indiana team's really good. But no, I mean, I would say mostly Miami, that defense. I'm fascinated to see that Ohio State game. And there is a part of me, just for the storyline, if Georgia were able to win and then you got Miami, if Miami was able to find a way to beat Ohio State, Miami and Georgia, Rob, I couldn't write enough stories about Carson Beck and Gunnar Stockton in that case.
Oh, my God. Well, you think about this. If I told you Alabama will go on the road to Norman, Oklahoma Friday night in that wild atmosphere at Gaylord Family Stadium, have 25 carries for 28 yards rushing, fall down 17-0, and win by 10, you'd probably say, Rob, go to bed. You need more sleep. You're hallucinating, wouldn't you? I know you would.
I'd have said that was a heck of a video game that you guys were playing.
That's right.
And it was one of those games, you even felt it at the time watching it. There were a couple of key moments where Oklahoma missed basically a kill shot. I mean, I think about a third down where, the quarterback has a chance to run for it. John Mateer's got the room to run forward and pick up the first down. He tries to take the deep shot and doesn't get it. And it's just, as many faults as this Alabama team has, it still is a championship caliber team. You have to deliver those knockout blows. If you don't, they're going to hang around and they're going to do like they did on Friday night in Norman.
Yeah, and watching the way Oklahoma's defense plays, they're so good on the front seven. And you look at Alabama, there was a pick six when they played in Tuscaloosa. There was a pick six in Norman, but Alabama got it this time. So back with Georgia in this matchup against Ole Miss, it's a night game, correct? So who's going to have the crowd advantage? I mean, Ole Miss fans love to think New Orleans is the capital of Southern Mississippi. Georgia fans are Georgia fans. I mean, they're smelling a national championship. They're tasting it. And Ole Miss, it's been a while.
I think it's going to be pretty split. I think it'll probably be pretty close to 50-50, just because Georgia fans are used to going to New Orleans. A lot of fans like making this trip right around New Year's and have the opportunity to go watch Georgia. And I think this is I don't see this more than likely being a situation where fans say, well, we'll save our money and go on to, try to go to the semifinals if Georgia wins. I think a lot of people, one, enjoy going to New Orleans, and two, I think they understand you can't really take anything you can't just say, well, they'll take care of Ole Miss. You do that, you may be watching the last game of the season at home and thinking, man, I really wish I would have gone to that game. So I think it'll be pretty split. Now, I will say this. I'm confident Ole Miss is going to travel well for this game. I think, like you said, that's a pretty short trek on the whole to go down to New Orleans. So I think it'll be pretty close to 50-50 if I had to guess.
Yeah, and they got a lot of alumni and fans here. Of course, George, everybody on TV, they act like all the fans live in Athens. All the fans live in Oxford. That's where the fewest fans live. I mean, I think I'll be willing to bet you, there's more Georgia fans in Atlanta than there are in Athens. See?
100%.
Yeah, exactly. So, but Jordan, this playoff right now, these 8 teams that we've got, I still eventually what makes March Madness so fun are the Cinderellas everybody likes to talk about, but we've never had one of them win it. So, are you in favor of just doing something different to get the best teams, or do you care about Group 5 or straight seeding? Give me the top 12, give me the top 16, regardless of conference affiliation.
I think I'm at the point where I would like them to make it where you have one of the 12 teams as a group of 5 team, and that's not including Notre Dame as one of those options, because I think they're still part of the FBS. And what I'd like for them to do is to put a stipulation that you have to be ranked in the probably top 20 of the college football playoff poll if you're a group of 5, and you got to be your conference champion. Now, I say that understanding you put that on there, and it's like, oh, Tulane finished 21st. Oh, I guess they're like, I know if you put a stipulation on there, that's just going to give the committee a spot to say, all right, well, let's put them right outside it and not let them in. But I understand the frustration. None of those games, the Tulane game, the James Madison game, they weren't competitive. I understand that. But I think there are occasionally going to be a team that had, a group of 5 team that has earned the right to be there. I would hear the case that neither one of the teams that made it this year earned the right with the losses they had. Tulane losing to UTSA, James Madison not playing anybody. I mean, their schedule was terrible this year.
Yeah.
But I'm someone, I don't want to just say we can't ever have a group of 5 team. I think if we can put a stipulation and say, hey, they got to be ranked in the top 20 of the playoff ranking, and they got to be their conference champion, I'd be okay with that. Getting one in among 12, to me, that's not that big of an issue.
Yeah, I'm the same way. All right, Jordan, I know you got a big day ahead of you. Thank you more than you know for sharing your time with us. Merry Christmas, and let people know how they can follow you, because I know you're going to be doing a ton of great work, as always.
Appreciate that. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody. Over on dogs247.com, got a lot of stuff. Today is Kirby Smart's birthday. He turned 50. So I have 50 stats over there in a story. So y'all go check that out. That was a fun one to work on. Junkyard Dogcast podcast is back live, 12 p.m. Eastern time, 11 a.m. Central. On Tuesday, we're going to talk about what Kirby had to say. We're going to talk about the Ole Miss matchup, some of the other stuff going on around college football. And, yeah, still staying busy. We're going to try to take a day or two and enjoy the holiday, go see some family. But always busy. And basketball's up to number 23 in the country. So they're keeping us busy on both fronts this December.
Well, we're going to be doing a lot of basketball coverage. So we're going to be working your football, basketball, and everything. Look, thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
All right. Appreciate you guys.
You bet.
Thanks, Jordan.
Bringing Heath Cline. And Heath, man, I was listening to the show yesterday. Was up at the park with the dogs. You and Chuck, that was a great quote about Alabama fans have had their Amex card worked over pretty hard, and talking about traveling to all these games. There's a lot of excitement out here, but I just asked that question. Do you think we got the 12 best teams out there? Do you like the mix that we have? Should we expand the playoff? But first off, thank you more than you know for sharing your time with us. We love having you on.
Yeah, sure. Good to be here. You know what? I would say this. I would say that they did within the system what they could do. It would not have been ideal to have these 2 teams. I think we all can agree. In a perfect world, you would have had an ACC champion, Miami, and then that gives us also room to get Notre Dame in. But it's not the committee's fault. The ACC had this boneheaded tiebreaker structure that allowed it to happen. And so once it did, you couldn't put Duke in. You couldn't say, well, 5-loss Duke is better. Just rig the system for them, because then that probably gets you sued anyway. So they did what they had to do. But, I mean, it could have been better. But here's my thing. Last year, it was 2 bad matchups in the second round. This year, it was 2 bad matchups in the first round. So it's progress. Now, ideally, if we could get out of the business of having bad matchups at all, that'd be better.
All right, before I ask the next question, I got to know, who is the guy in the headsets behind you? I love the poster.
Oh, that's just a drawing of a chimp. That's all that is.
Okay. All right, just check. All right.
It's not an accident that my wife sets me up in front of this.
I love it. All right. So when you think about what is going on in college football right now, I saw a picture on Twitter last night. It's a meme, I guess. It's Bill Belichick and Bobby Petrino in a golf cart. He goes, Bobby, let's go. We're going to sorority row. How's that going to work? How's that going to work out?
Well, just imagine this. I was talking about this. Normally, one of the first things you would kind of expect you would do if you're a coach is, you go out to dinner with the wives, a new member of the staff. And look, anybody who does know anything about college football will tell you the interactions between the spouses on a staff is a big part of things. They're a huge part of recruiting weekends and relationships and so forth. Can you imagine the first time that Bobby Petrino's wife meets Jordan? I mean, think about that. Oh, good to meet you, Bill, and your cookie. This is delightful.
Yeah.
I don't even. Can you even does she even come to Chapel Hill, or does she just say, Bobby, you're going to be, you just have fun. I'll see you in a year.
Yeah.
I really do wonder, but this is the reality of this situation. Nobody in college football believes that Bill Belichick is in this thing for the long haul, and so if you're a talented young OC, maybe a year ago, if Bill Belichick was trying to hire, you would have said, "Oh wow, I can hitch my star to Bill Belichick, and this could be great for my career." Now, after you see what happened and you see what the talent is there, why would you want to be involved? So, in that sense, bringing in Bobby Petrino, who desperately wants to coach, but clearly has burned so many bridges that almost nobody wants anything to do with the man. It actually makes sense for him to bring him in. He probably did about as good a job as he could have for having someone who knows how to call plays in college. Because as Shane Beamer could tell you, being in the NFL, even calling plays in the NFL does not necessarily mean you can do it in college. And he has finally said, wow, I better go get Kendall Browse. I better go get somebody that can call plays in college and has proved it right now. And I think in the case of Bill Belichick, that's kind of what's going on here too. Need a good college play calling mind, and he's got one. Whatever you think of Bobby Petrino, the guy, he can still call plays.
Yeah, he can. The ACC, the SEC, they're like first cousins. You're in Atlanta. There's a ton of everybody right there. It's usually everybody's largest alumni base in the country outside of their own state. So the health, Florida State, they're broken down, 4 bald tires, no gas, and they're out of money. You look at Clemson, they just went way south this year. Look around the league. Virginia rises up. Duke wins the league with 5 losses. What's the future of the league? I don't want to see it. Nobody wants to see it fold. But did they hang on to basketball and Chapel Hill? Like, that's the most important sport and the 800 SAT for too long?
No, I don't think it's that. My goodness, look at that conference. They've made moves for football over and over and over. FSU was a move for football. Miami and Virginia Tech were moves for football. They've done things to try and make moves for football. Now, some of the moves they made, part of the problem is that they tried to thread the needle on being for both football and basketball. So you go out there and you add Syracuse and you add Pitt. And what are you doing? You're adding schools that have a very limited window of where people are interested in them and that are better known, especially at Syracuse, obviously, for basketball than for football. So there are some moves you could say maybe they were too clever trying to do them both. But, overall, if you look at it, the problem is their league is too many private schools. It's too wide across before we even include Cal and Stanford, which is a whole separate issue. But it's too many private schools. And so you don't have enough loyalty, enough attention, enough fan base when you've got all these private schools to generate the same attention, generate the same ability to get players that you do when you're talking about the SEC, the Big Ten, and even the Big 12. The Big 12 has a couple of private schools like a Baylor, but they've got a lot of public schools. This conference just doesn't make sense. Nobody in their right mind would say, hey, again, leave the West Coast stuff out of it, because that was about trying to break off some extra money to keep FSU and Clemson happy and try and keep their TV deal preserved a certain way. So, okay, we'll cut them some slack on that. And they got a freebie with SMU. So, again, fine. But even then, nobody that grew up in the ACC with rivalries that are right very closely geographically located, nobody in North Carolina wants to say, I didn't get to play Wake this year. I didn't get to play Duke. I didn't get to play NC State or North Carolina. But it's okay because I did get to play Boston College, and I did get to play SMU, and I did get to play Syracuse. It just doesn't work. Like the SEC schools that they've added, they make sense. The only one that still doesn't feel completely SEC is Missouri, and even there it's kind of like, well, okay, a little bit. But it at least geographically touches an SEC state. It's not just completely bizarre. If the SEC just suddenly up out of nowhere said, oh, Utah's in the SEC, everybody's like, what the heck is this? And that's basically what they've done. They've just pasted this conference together for random reasons, and there's just not enough of them with a fan base and the money to care about football and compete the right way. So that leaves you vulnerable for when Clemson suddenly goes from being super elite Clemson to, they're okay Clemson, and FSU goes off a cliff. All of a sudden you look around and you've got programs with potential, but nothing that's really doing much.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. And you look at the contiguous footprint of the Southeastern Conference, and in Kentucky connects to Indiana. One day, who knows? Fastest growing denomination in the South is the Catholic Church. Do they grab Notre Dame? I mean, I don't know. But I like a lot of people say, Jeff Boone in particular, great friend of mine in my hunting club, Georgia fan, born and raised in Atlanta and Athens. He goes, why is it always everybody, blah, 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 and Notre Dame? That ain't never going to change. I don't think. I mean, how Notre Dame doesn't have to be in a conference until they have to be. How long can they do it?
I mean, at the moment, there's no reason to think they're going to stop anytime soon, because it goes back to Notre Dame can do what they do for a reason. It would be like asking, why is it that the starting quarterback always seems to have a good chance with the head cheerleader if he wants to date her? Why is that? Because he's the starting quarterback. And so you can certainly look and say, I don't get it. Notre Dame hasn't won a Heisman Trophy since Reagan was in office. They haven't won a national title in more than 30 years. Why is this school such a big deal? But if you're asking that question, you're asking it with the perspective of just strictly football and nothing else. You're not asking from the perspective of, do TV executives care greatly about Notre Dame? So when people say, don't schedule them, shut them out. Okay, great. If you're the ACC, look at the games that they have and the ratings that they draw. Look at the crowds that the games with Notre Dame draw. Imagine what it does. We just talked about some of these smaller schools. What does it do for a Wake Forest when you either have Notre Dame come to your campus or you can sell that game to Charlotte? What does that do for your bottom line? They benefit from Notre Dame immensely. Yeah. You just look at bowl games. Where does Notre Dame go now? This year they chose not to go. But when they go to a bowl game, it will sell out because they're fans in all parts of the country who are Notre Dame fans. So you have to like it. And again, if we're talking about how you would design things, nobody in their right mind would say a Catholic university located in South Bend. You ever been to South Bend? Ever been to
not
South
yet.
Bend, Indiana?
I have not.
The campus is beautiful. It's exactly what it's hyped to be with the grotto and the Golden Dome and everything else. Beautiful setup. Around it, yeeks, not great. I've been to plenty of Midwestern cities, smaller Midwestern cities, bigger Midwestern cities. Yeah. I am not opposed to the Midwest as a whole. Chicago's one of my favorite places to be. Yeah. But there are some Midwestern cities that have a lot of charm to them still. And there's some Midwestern cities that you can just tell, hey, it snows here a lot. And there's not a lot of people want to be here. And that's South Bend. And you would never in a million years say, put this Catholic university in South Bend, Indiana, and expect them to be great at football. It would never make any sense, but nothing in this sport ever does. The way it's come together through the years has never made sense. The idea of college football doesn't make sense. If college football had never existed, and around 2005, somebody said, hey, I got me an idea. Why don't we put somewhat professional-like teams on college campuses, and we'll have the schools build like 90,000-seat stadiums, and we'll charge a ton of money to see them play? People would say, you're all hopped up on goofballs. What's wrong with you, man? Yeah. But that's what we are. That's the reality. And it's because this all along the way just kind of has perpetually been taped on one thing onto the next. And it's part of what makes the sport great, but it's also why you wind up with a school like Notre Dame that makes no sense to be a national power, but is. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is, so where Auburn has announced a home and home with Notre Dame. And Auburn, you talk about what's going on, and I'm an Auburn grad. It's like Auburn's what Ole Miss was 10 or 15 years ago. The tailgate is ginormous, and 5 straight losing seasons. Lost the edge. How do you win? I mean, there's 90,000 people. They're selling out every game at Jordan-Hare Stadium. There's 100,000 people tailgating during the game. Who would have ever thought Ole Miss would be in the playoffs and have 3 straight 10-win seasons? Auburn had never done that. Boy, things have flipped, and if you were sitting on your ass thinking that you can just rest on your laurels, and I love this show about history, traditions, and heroes, you're dead wrong. I've got a friend that works for someone in Indiana who is a hedge fund manager, and let's just say he supports the Hoosiers, and when you've got that kind of wealth, and there's people like that all over the country, Heath, you know this. Anybody, that's why I'm saying Group of 5, Power 4, anybody can turn that switch on. Let's say there's 16 million Mormons in the world. if they went to every one of them and said, give at least $1,000 to the mothership, BYU. See, that's where this is going, and it's just going to get out of control. It's going to be like Vegas before they made it a quote, family-friendly city, and you've been out there a lot.
Yeah, the one thing I would say, though, is that there are still going to be limits to what people want to do, because if you give money, you're going to want to see results. And not everybody can have huge results at the same time. So it gives us what we had the other day. I don't know if you saw this or not, but Kenny Dillingham, who clearly could have left Arizona State if he wanted to, probably for Michigan right now, but he could have been involved in the Florida job, the Auburn job. There's plenty of jobs he could have been involved in had he wanted to.
Yeah.
Kenny Dillingham is from Arizona. Kenny Dillingham is only 35 years old.
Yeah.
He wants to try and make Arizona State great. And so his confidence is there and should be. Hey, I'm a good coach, and maybe when I'm 40, I'll take Florida or Auburn or whoever. But right now, this is where I want to be with my family and in the place I'm from, and I want to make Arizona State great. So even as he turned down all these opportunities that were clearly there and committed to staying there, what's he saying? I need somebody in Arizona to write a check for $20 million. I know there's somebody here in Phoenix that could write a check for $20 million. Well, I mean, there might be such a human being, but what are the odds that they wanted to write a check for $20 million for Sun Devil football and no one bothered to ask them yet? You can only say that so many times, because, again, if you write that check for $20 million, it's not, and then it becomes the Rob Browne training facility. And then we come to you next year and say, hey, got another $20 million. That's not sustainable. It's not. So in the short term, there's a whole lot of sifting and a lot of craziness going on, and teams can make big jumps up and spikes. But, what do you have with Troy Aikman? Remember what Troy Aikman said a couple of weeks ago?
Yep.
Troy Aikman said, I didn't even hear from the kid I put in NIL, and I'm out on it. And then that's how many versions of that are playing out all across the country, where somebody's excited that, well, the coaches told me we needed this 4-star offensive lineman or this 5-star running back, and a year later he's on his way to another place. And they all just kind of say, okay, not for me, thanks. It's not viable as a long-term strategy to keep trying to tap people's pockets this hard.
Well, I promise you, as a 34 years as a financial advisor managing people's wealth, I can promise you this. Money talks, wealth whispers. Okay. The big money probably never gets asked. People are scared to ask them. And I'll tell you another thing I've learned. The super big money, they're fed up with everybody thinking they're supposed to pay for everything. They're done with it at more and more schools than you realize. We better watch this one. It's going to be fun. Heath, I got to tell you, I'll give you a compliment. Your show every day, it's phenomenal. It's on 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. Chuck Oliver Show, Southern Sports Today. I got to try Marco's Pizza. I'm starved for Marco's Pizza. I hear that ad when I'm biking or running or walking every day. But you put out so much great information. And you've helped me with several great guests that we've had on here. And the thing I'm learning is more and more, football matters when you drill down local. That's Brendan's theme always. Texas Tech. You think they can pull this thing off? If you had Cody Campbell on the show or ever had a chance to talk to him?
No, we haven't had Cody on. To be honest, I've tried. I don't know. There's some times where it feels like he might pop up. The one thing with Cody is we normally try to keep it pretty much to people who cover the teams, occasionally a coach, but mostly to the people who cover the teams. There's Cody is kind of a little bit even political really right now with what he's trying to do with some of these pieces of legislation that they've been pushing. But look, Texas Tech, Oregon is going to be a fascinating game, because I don't think Texas Tech has seen anybody with the speed that Oregon can put on the field at as many spots as they can put it on the field. You might have seen a guy here, a guy there, but you look around the Big 12, there's not anybody that you could point to that you'd say, yeah, they're really similar to Oregon. There's really not a good example of that. And they played a very limited non-conference schedule. So what they have is they have special athletes on the line, particularly the D-line. And if you got that, you always have a chance to win games. Morton doesn't seem to be a bad quarterback, but you also never know if he's going to make it through a full 60 minutes without getting banged up. Look, if they beat Oregon, will I say, oh, wow, there's no way I saw this coming? No, it's not that, but it feels like Oregon's better. And this is also what we're going to learn, Rob, about what the effect of this bye week is. Because last year, we know that everybody lost, but we also can point to, all right, Oregon lost to Ohio State. So They'd already seen him once. You're not going to surprise Ohio State with anything. Ohio State had played a game and was maybe a little fresher and sharper, but it also seems like just Ohio State, as they showed us, was just the most talented team. Now, should they have gotten beat the way they did? Again, maybe that's an effect of having the layoff, maybe. But I get the feeling Ohio State would have won that game pretty much any way you wanted to slice it. Georgia loses to Notre Dame, but Georgia's also trying to break in a new quarterback in Gunnar Stockton. And so, again, what effect did that have? And then you had two mismatches. So we're going to find out a lot more this year about, is this delay where one team's been off for more than a month or so and the other team has played a game 2 weeks earlier, is that a factor? Because if it is, then I think for Texas Tech, the idea that Oregon not only will have played a game, worked through some things, not gotten rusty, but also might be adding a guy like an Everett Stewart back into the rotation at receiver. I think that's a tricky mix. I would not be surprised if Oregon wins that football game because there's a lot of factors that say they could. But again, Texas Tech has athletes on the D-line that could maybe they can just put so much heat on Moore that he makes mistakes, and it doesn't matter because the receivers can't get the ball because the receivers, by the time they're open, the quarterback's already where you can't get to him. Who knows?
Yeah. Heath, look, I know you got to get going. Big day. The show will be on again, 11 a.m., 1 p.m., Chuck Oliver show. And you, because you Rolodex to the stars, and that's no joke. We had Jarrett Johnson on from Texas Tech. Got to bring you back on. Absolutely AAA plus. You all have the best. But let people know how they can follow you, and we will have you on again soon. Happy holidays, and really appreciate your time.
Yeah, sure. Chuck Oliver Show is the show handle. We'll send out the guests. And honestly, where that's most useful is if you hear somebody on the air you like and you want to click on their handle and follow them, you can. So we always send out Chuck Oliver Show, the guests on Twitter every day. And then for me, if you want to get a hold of me, it's Heath Radio, just HEATH Radio at any of the various platforms that exist out there, except for don't do anything really on Facebook. But otherwise, you can find me around.
All right. Appreciate it a lot. All right. Let's get ready. We got Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Gary Harris going to join us as well. Normally it's Rodney and Yancy together. Now, it is Christmas Day. Is Thursday. We will not do a show because it's Christmas Day. And everybody will be off that day. But Gary's with us driving, and Yancy will check in as well. So we're going to have, we've already had Jordan Hill covers Georgia. We got 3 SEC schools left, so we're going to have Gary covering Alabama and Yancy covering Ole Miss here in a moment. Gary, first off, I took Alabama straight up. I said, they get into a scoring match and gets above 24 points, Alabama will run away with this thing. So I'm over at the Lodge Friday night with some serious Alabama fans having meltdowns. Not that I had never gone crazy. And I said, look, if you were my teammate, I'd punch you in the mouth. I said, Alabama's going to come back and win this game. He goes, man, Rob, he goes, you're crazy. I said, I know, but it keeps me from going insane. That's a shout out to Waylon Jennings, his famous line. Alabama fought back 25 carries, 28 yards, Gary. Take it from there. And they won by 10.
Yeah. It didn't start out well, obviously. I had picked Alabama to win too, as you know. I said it on the show last week, 24-20. And, when it was 17-0, Oklahoma, and Alabama wasn't doing anything in the game, I was like everybody else. I mean, I was like, this is not going to end well. But, I don't know if you call it good sense or just discretion. I didn't run out on Twitter and make a lot of posts that I had to, premature Twittering, as they call it, and like a lot of people did. I understand that what you just said, that football, particularly in this day and age, I think I've talked about this. I watch NFL every Sunday, and it's gotten that way in college too. I mean, you don't feel like a game's over unless you've got maybe a 24-point lead with 2 minutes to go. I mean, we've seen teams down 16 and 2.5 minutes to go, come back, tie a game, and force overtime. I mean, it's never over. And so I was disappointed in how Alabama started the game, but like you, felt like there was a lot of football left. And once they triggered it just kind of, they had moved. We talked about this last week. They moved the ball well against Oklahoma and Tuscaloosa, 406 yards, and tie through for almost 330 in the game. And you're down 17-0, and everybody will point toward, the punt drop of the snap or the guy dropping the ball, long pass or the pick six. I thought the key play in the game was that 25-yard reception to Ladzier Brooks when Alabama took it 75 yards. And then, of course, obviously the 4th and 2 as well for the touchdown. That's when Alabama got back in the game. Because if you don't score there and Oklahoma gets another possession, it could go an entirely different way. But they got it to 17-7, and you're like, man, you know what? And then, of course, you do get the drop punt snap at 17-10. And then Oklahoma, to their credit, they're out near fourth field with a minute and something to go in the first half. And they're thinking, we can get this thing back up to a 2-score game. And obviously, Xavier Brown, tipped off or read the route or whatever. He jumped the route, and it's 17-17. So at that point, again, I didn't rule Oklahoma out, but I thought, you know what, this is, you're talking about your Alabama fan friends. When you're a fan, you always look at it from your team's perspective, or the way you feel. Oh my God, we know chance to come back. But if you have flipped the roles, if you're an Oklahoma fan at that point, you go in and your team goes in the locker room, Rob, and you're saying, oh my gosh, man, it's 17-17. We were up 17-0. So I think the whole vibe, and I wasn't there, but I think the whole vibe probably in Norman was, man, we could be in some trouble here. And then Alabama made it 27-17, and Oklahoma cut it back to 27-20, but Alabama went on to win it, or 27-24. Alabama went on to win it 34-24. So good win for the Crimson Tide, and they advance on to the Rose Bowl.
Gary, I got to ask you a question. Is your steering wheel on the right side, like a British car? Because it looks like you're on the right side of the car. This is pretty cool.
Well, it's probably the reversal
okay.
of the cam shot.
I'm messing with you.
So I'm on the left. Hey,
there you go.
But I'm having to focus on the road. My eyes have to
I know.
be on the road,
I'm messing with you. It was pretty cool. All right. So look, Yancy Porter. Yancy, this is Gary Harris on his WVUA sports director in Tuscaloosa. The other part of Tider Insider TV with our friend Rodney Orr, who is out today on special assignment. Yancy, here it is. 2 of the 3 SEC teams still alive in the college football playoff. You were there Saturday at the largest sporting event in the state of Mississippi history. Your takeaways from Ole Miss's big win over Tulane, and then they get ready now to go play Georgia in the capital of Southern Mississippi, New Orleans.
Yeah, it was important for Ole Miss to start off fast, which I thought they did. They played very clean. They finished clean. The one problem is what's the status of Keywan Layson, right? Arguably the top running back in the country. They're going to need him for Georgia, and his shoulder injury is unknown right now.
Well, injury-wise, Alabama's guys look like they're getting healthy. Yancy, you got 45-10 the first time, 41-10 this time. I asked the same question to everybody. What did you see different out of the Ole Miss offense with Charlie Weiss Jr. there and no Lane Kiffin that we know of calling plays on the sidelines?
Not much. The decisions, I think they went for it on 1 4th down. They kicked the field goal on the other 4th down. And they punted on the other 4th down when they were 4th and shorts. Maybe how aggressive they were on 4th down was really about the only difference that I saw.
Okay. Gary, looking at Alabama, 25 carries, 28 yards. That's 4 feet per carry. Would you have gambled and taken Alabama to win if they were going to go on the road and only do that? That's an amazing stat, but how good?
You know what? I'm used to this team not running the ball.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not trying to demean what you're saying.
Yeah, I know.
But at this point, I think Alabama can win games without running the football. So I'm not shocked by it. Again, sack yardage comes off of that. For some reason in college football, I don't know why they do it that way, but the Daniel Hill did have the one burst, and so it's not listen. If you're an Alabama football fan, you're having a hard time wrapping your arms around the fact that this team doesn't run the football. I get it, but this is a different era of college football too, and I don't like it. I mean, I still prefer teams that line up and bully ball you and impose their will on you. A lot of teams don't do that anymore, and so. Yeah. You are what you are at this point in the season. You're not going to reinvent the wheel. They're not going to come out against Indiana and suddenly run for 225 yards. It's just not going to happen. So you've got to win the way you win. And they're an opportunistic team on defense. And offensively, when, Ty gets into a rhythm and they block for him, and, I mentioned getting healthier. I think he was banged up toward the end of the year, and he threw the football really well in that game. So, you win the way you win or you lose the way you lose. And this is the team that they've got. And if they're going to beat Indiana, they're going to have to figure out a way to beat them, probably without having what you would call a solid running game. So, I'm not shocked by it, I guess is what I'm telling you, Rob.
Yeah, no, I'm not either. It is a different world. Yancy, you talk about Lacey and the way Ole Miss runs the ball. We watched A&M. I took Miami to win straight up. I was like, A&M's given up over 200 yards rushing on 4 occasions. What'd they do Saturday? Gave up 218 to Miami. Yancy, best player no one's talking about on the Ole Miss team who really jumped out in that game Saturday that you think is really going to help against Georgia. Anybody surprising you?
Yeah, I think Jalen Braxton would be that guy. Number 2, defensive back that plays a lot of safety, a lot of corner. Played more corner against Tulane. He's actually Ole Miss's highest paid player, portal edition from this past season. Came from Arkansas. Was injured when he reported. Got cleaned up his knee. Didn't really get out on the field until the middle of the season. Didn't get in a rhythm into these last couple games, and he seems like he's found his game now and playing really, really well. They're going to need him. They've got to be able. Last game against Georgia, he caught 3 TD passes. They're tight end, and they got to have some coverages so they can really concentrate on that run game. As you know, that Georgia quarterback can really make plays with his feet. And Georgia's playing really physical right now, so they've got to have some good coverage back there, which they did not have against Georgia in the first game.
Gary, similar question, player for Alabama. I'm thinking Isaiah Horton out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Riverdale High School, who scored 3 touchdowns against Auburn. He's really good, but similar question for you and answer possibly.
All right, I was getting pulled in here to park. Rephrase the question for me one more time.
Yeah, just a player on Alabama's team that really jumped out, stepped up, you hadn't expected in that game against Oklahoma, the win on the road at Norman that you think can really help them in the next game in the Rose Bowl, which will be the 100th anniversary of Alabama 20, Washington 19. Big, yeah. That's a big-ass deal.
Yeah, it is. That's the game that puts Southern football on the map and gained respect not just for Alabama, but Southern football. So it's ironic. You're right. It's ironic that Alabama's going back to the Rose Bowl in 2026, 100 years after they beat Washington 20-19 as a huge underdog. And if you ever want to watch a great documentary, you can find it on YouTube, The Roses of Crimson, that documents that whole trip on the train out there. Johnny Mac Brown, of course, used that game to parlay into a successful acting career and so forth and so on. But as far as the Oklahoma game, a guy that stepped it up, I mean, I would have to say it was Daniel Hill. I mean, and Lazier Brooks. I'll give you 2 of them. The true freshman had not scored a touchdown all year. He gets 2 in that game, and came up big and is talented. And we've been kind of waiting for him to break out, and he did in that game. And particularly with the fact that Ryan Williams has not played, very well this season, or as well as people would like. And then Daniel Hill, had the touchdown late, and he was a guy that what running game they did have. He was the one that provided it with Jam Miller back, but not 100%. So those 2 guys come to mind. Obviously, Xavier Brown with a pick 6, but Xavier's been a guy who I would say he's a star. That's his 3rd touchdown this season. So he's a guy that, 2 of them pick 6s, one of them a fumble return. So he's a big play guy.
All right, question from Mortimer Duke. I like that tight end for Alabama. And everyone says they're going to throw to the tight end, but when you get a good one, let's talk about him. Because that can change everything. The way people
Josh
defend
Williams is a really good player, and they missed him, and he wasn't full speed in this game. And his stat, he was kind of on a snap count, but yeah, he's an excellent receiver and a guy that can, he can get isolated on a linebacker. He can make him pay. He's great in the seam. As I said, terrific hands. Runs after the catch. So yeah, the fact that he's going to get another nearly 2 weeks to get healthy. You said this earlier, Rob. I think Alabama is going to be as healthy for the Rose Bowl as they've been since early in the season. But I don't know, again, people follow their own teams, so they may not know this if they're not an Alabama fan. Alabama's had a lot of injuries this year, and several of them were season-ending, guys that would have helped this team that went out early in the year. So Cuevas is a weapon, and I think they'll be looking to use him against an aggressive Indiana defense.
Yancy, a lot of friends of mine went down to that game Saturday in Oxford. Pete Golding's first game as a head coach. He was the 2nd highest paid defensive coordinator in college football behind Jim Knowles, who went to Penn State. Now he's at Tennessee. What did you notice different about Pete not being able to be completely myopically focused on the defense in a game?
Not a lot. He was very calm. That's the first thing that I noticed. Didn't get real excited either way. A lot of defensive coordinators are very emotional on in the press box or on the sidelines wherever they decide to watch the games. And Pete's very stoic, just very. He'd be a great poker player. Just doesn't get high and doesn't get down during the games.
Okay. Gary, of all the things, Indiana, this matchup, how many guys that start for Indiana? This is a crazy question, but it's a question I got to ask. How many of their starters you think would be starting for this Alabama team?
Rob, I don't know. I'm going to say this because I've already been hit with this a lot this week. This perception that Alabama has all these 5 stars and Indiana is doing this with mirrors. I think Indiana's a really good football team, and I think they're much more talented than they're going to be given credit for. Of course, Coach Cignetti was here for several years with Coach Saban. They do have a toughness about them. They do have incredible discipline and mindset. But I think there are a number of their guys that could start at Alabama. I think, maybe if you just break it down player by player, you'll say that Alabama is a more talented football team than Indiana. I would say at this point, and let me be clear on this, because sometimes you say things and people run with it. I think Alabama can win the game. No doubt about that. But I think Indiana is a better team than Alabama based on the body of work this year. So again, whether they've got 4 guys, 5 guys, 8 guys, 10 guys that can start for Alabama, I don't really know that matters at this point. It's team against team. They're a really good team. I respect Indiana. I look at Alabama's schedule, and yes, Alabama's played a tougher schedule, but Indiana went to Oregon and won. That would be a challenge for any SEC team. They beat Ohio State and Indianapolis in the Big Ten championship, and that would be a challenge for any SEC team. Yeah. I do think Alabama has the best win in the country this year. I think the win at Athens against Georgia is the best win than anybody. I don't think anybody else has a win on their resume like that win, because nobody else can win over there.
Yeah.
So, but I think Indiana's a really good team, and I'm not trying to avoid your question, Rob. I can't answer that, but I think they're much more talented than maybe what SEC fans' perception of them is. And and Cignetti brought in a lot of guys from James Madison when he came over. They hit the portal again this year. I'd say obviously their quarterback's pretty talented. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. And, and again, I'm not saying I'd swap Ty Simpson for anybody, but Fernando Mendoza is an incredible player, and they've got other incredible players. So I think they're a really talented football team, much more than maybe what people are going to try to portray them as we get ready for this game. And they're a 6-point favorite for a reason. So, that's all. That's the best way I can answer it.
No, and that's the answer I would give. Is like, it doesn't matter. It's how are they playing right now? Matchups are what they are, but matchups on game day are what win or lose a game for you. Yancy, you look at Ole Miss. Pete Cordelli gave an interesting stat yesterday. Starters and players on your roster that you recruited out of high school among these playoff teams, and the players you brought in via the portal. You know what percent of players on Georgia's roster came from their recruits from high school versus the portal? You want to take a guess?
80%.
90. Yeah, 91. It's amazing. You know what? Ole Miss is like 34. And so it just goes to show you it's kind of a diametrically opposing argument that you can make, but nobody's better at managing the portal than Lane Kiffin. But I would think Pete Golding learned a thing or two from being on there with Kiffin. And he's also, I'm going to go out on a limb here, he's the best recruiter on your staff, I think.
Unquestionably the best recruiter on the staff. And you can tell by the staff he's putting together, they're all dynamic recruiters. So that's going to be first and foremost. He knows you wins, with the players more than even X's and O's. So, talent but then you look, there's examples the other way, right? Look at Cignetti and the way that they evaluate it. Like he was saying, Indiana is a lot more talented than people believe because they evaluated a lot of guys, right? That were not the glitzy 4 and 5 star players. So there's both ways to do it. You can out evaluate people, you can out recruit people in the blue chip way, or you can do a combination, which Georgia seems to do a great job. I mean, look. Kirby's, he's almost Saban 2.0. It probably will be the closest thing to the Nick Saban in our lifetime. There
Yep.
won't be another Kirby Smart. So he does an outstanding job. He does it the old school way. He likes to do it through the high school rankings. You know, really, Ohio State is. I would like to see their mix to starters versus portals and um, guys they recruited out of high school. But Georgia's undoubtedly doing it at a higher rate than anybody.
Yeah.
Even Alabama's starting to shift some. Right, they're getting some portal guys. So it's very tough doing it that way. I mean, it is very, very tough. And kudos for Kirby for pulling it off in this era.
Yeah, I'm going to get those stats for you. I think Ohio State was in the 72 or 76% high school recruits.
Hey, Rob, I got to run. I want to say something real quick
Yeah.
before we go because I agree with Yancy on Kirby Smart. He of all the Saban disciples, he is the closest. I mean, he just really reminds me of Saban. But when you look at this playoff, look at the number of guys that are coachy that are left that came up under Saban at some point. I mean, it's just about every one of them. Goldie, Land, Smart, Signetti. I mean, it's unbelievable the impact he's had, at Alabama and the impact that he's still having in college football with all these guys that learned and coached under him. Hey, I got to go. Thanks, guys.
Merry Christmas, man. We'll see you next week.
Merry Christmas, Rob. Bye-bye.
All right, you bet. Yancy, it's interesting. Pete Cordelli has the stats. I'm going to go back and pull that from yesterday's show, and I'll send it to you. But
what is Alabama's? Just curious.
I'm thinking
probably
it
high
was
60s.
I think it was 82%.
82,
so,
still that high.
Yeah, it's really. And so you look around, and I watched that Ole Miss game. Man, Ole Miss didn't look like they missed a beat, and damn, their fans had a great time, and they're going to go to New Orleans. It's Kirby Smart's birthday today. Happy birthday, Kirby! Hope you're watching. Welcome on the show anytime, Coach. Man out of Bainbridge, Georgia, Tifton, Southwest Georgia. But look, Yancy, Merry Christmas to you, man. I appreciate you so much. Always coming on this show, and you don't ever miss. And let people know how they can follow you. Keep up with Rebel Yell Hotline, folks. It's Monday nights at 6 p.m. every week on Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis and Super Talk Mississippi.
Yeah, just go Yancy Porter at Yancy Porter anywhere social media or at Rebel Yell Hotline. That's it. Very simple.
You cover the Rebels like kudzu and cotton with the humidity. I love it, man. So we'll talk to you next week.
God bless. Take care.
Yeah, God bless you as well. I'm telling you what, sponsors make it happen. LandersFordMemphis.com, located right there at Poplar and Houston Levee, open every day of the week except Sunday. Day means more than the dollar. 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Great service department, great people to work with. You got to love them. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager. You're getting a car, truck, or SUV. Huge lot, ginormous inventory. And you will see the Landers name on football stadiums like Christian Brothers High School, like Houston High School, Collierville High School, all over the Mid-South. I don't think I've ever seen a better corporate partner than Landers Ford. And they're right down the street from our great friends at Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville. Hey, man, Christmas is Thursday. They're open tonight till probably 7 p.m. On the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. You can order from anywhere. Men's and women's boots, Filson, Barber, Stetson, Wrangler, Ariat. Oh, my goodness. The boots they have made out of everything you can imagine. HewlettandDunn.com. Rumble Boxing Gym. How you fight is how you live. Get in the best shape of your life. And you got aches and pains, got trouble sleeping. HempForPros.com. The gummies, energy, chill, and lights out. And they got the roll-ons, the topicals, the gels for pain. I'm using one for a shoulder arm injury. It actually works. I'm telling you what, these things work. It's natural. HempForPros.com. Use Flash Friday promo code for 40% off through the month of December. For executive producer Brendan Martin, the best in the business, who wakes up every day and says, how can I outdo yesterday? Well, he just keeps doing it. Okay. And watch the show tonight.
Every day, and I think, how can I keep up with Rob today?
You there? But
it's Christmas. There's no show tonight for Lauren Meadows. There's no Buddy Martin show for the rest of the week.
Okay. So we'll see you tomorrow, Brendan.
It's Christmas Eve, Rob. I was
What do you?
hoping
Let me know what you want to do. We'll talk about it.
We're not going to work on Christmas Eve, Robert. We're going to take the day off.
We're going to take off tomorrow.
Yes,
no show tomorrow. And let me just say this: most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Find people. Look, we're all out shopping. We're all doing things. Pull over to the side and help somebody that you know needs help.
I pulled over to the side the other day, and I gave somebody. I had to give somebody the Heimlich maneuver in the middle of the road 2 days ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, look, we can all make a difference
in the road, and I had to give them the Heimlich maneuver. And after the movie, and Stella was in the back. It's a whole story.
Wow, that's awesome. Look,
Merry Christmas to that.
So we'll see you Friday.
And my gutters are going on right now. They're putting up new gutters on my house, and my roof is done, and the drywall guy is going to finish today. I'm going to have a Christmas miracle.
It is a roof. And I'm going to tell you what, man, we are so blessed. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We'll see you Friday. Do a show Friday.
What is today?
Today's Tuesday. Yeah.
All right. So
we'll see you Friday.
Friday. Yep.
Okay.
Merry Christmas
Friday.
to the
Merry
world.
Christmas. And everybody, thank you so much for watching. You have no idea how excited we are every day to come on here and be with y'all. But Merry Christmas, everybody. It's going to be a great one.
Rob a little bit more excited than me, but that's just because I'm that way. So Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. Ho, 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 ho.